All right, everybody, welcome. Sorry for the slight delay, a few technical issues, as always. All right, so welcome everybody to this evening's ACY Securities webinar, Live Forex Market Review. If you could just read through the disclaimer, that would be great. And any questions, just put them into the question box or the chat box. If you're on our YouTube live stream, then I can't see the chat. So if you're putting questions in, I can't see them, but you're more than welcome to use the link I've given and come and join us in the room. So please read through the disclaimer. Hopefully everybody can see it on screen. I was having a few technical issues coming on board, so hopefully everybody can see the disclaimer. Right, we'll move along. If you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities, and I'm a full-time trader. Been trading for more than 15 years now in the Forex market, mentoring for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is on screen there, duncan.cooper@acy.com. Through the week, you can connect with me at our website, acy.com market news tab, at our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia, and you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. There are my handles. And as well, you can connect with me in our Telegram channel. If you want to get access to that, just contact Nathan Bray. His email is down at the bottom. I'll put his email in the chat momentarily. If you want to get access to my chart layouts and templates, if you're at the webinar last night and you need them, then just contact Nathan too. So I'll put that in the chat. All right, there we go. So let's just have a look at the news. It's quiet now for the news for the rest of the week after yesterday's very volatile releases. And it's worth having a look at what came out yesterday, I suppose. So 19th. All right, here we go. Wednesday the 18th. That was yesterday's just here. So yesterday's core PPI, PPI retail sales, core retail sales coming out. And core PPI came in pretty much on print. PPI came down worse than expected by 0.4. 0.4 more worse than expected. Retail sales were worse. Core retail sales were worse. So there's just no good news coming out of the US at the moment in terms of their data. And yes, pairs to the US dollar were preempting that before and they moved up afterwards. But then we did have a rather large sell-off. So have we topped out? We did not continue up for the whole New York session. We actually had a reversal. So there is no real data coming out. Today we have had the Aussie data. And the unemployment rate has ticked up, so that is not good. Maybe those interest rate rises are just starting to eat into the economy. We'll have to wait and see. All right, Aussie has been moving down, so there's no major items coming out for the rest of the week. So let's get to the charts. And I'll have a look at the dollar yen first because it's at a level that I posted out in our Telegram today. I'll just tidy this up and then I can go to my higher charts. So on the weekly chart, I've got this fib drawn in. I've got two here, but I'll get rid of one of them. Right, so the fib on the weekly chart here is across last year's range, and we're sitting at that 62% level. Is that going to be a level where it offers major support for this current year? To put in maybe a low to move up? We'll have to wait and see. Quite a number of pairs to the US dollar have kind of done the same thing. The pound dollar, New Zealand dollar failed at their 62 levels once more yesterday. So are we going to hold here and move up? Now, weekly trend is down at the moment. Your higher time frame monthly trend is up. This is just corrective on the monthly, but weekly trend is down and your day trend is down. But with the Bank of Japan coming out yesterday, we had a massive upward move. Did finish positive for the day, even though we sold most of it off. But are we holding at this 62 level? On the 4-hour charts, there's this 4-hour support area to the left here. And I had a fib drawn in from that low up to the high. And today, well, the 79% level overlaps with the 62 level. And today we've dipped into that level. And we're reversing this kind of left shoulder area here. All right, so on the 15, I put it out there today. I was expecting price to maybe come down to test the 62 level, the 79 level, and the figure down here, which we've done. We did shift a little bit through, but we have started to reverse. We've had a trend line break, we've had a swing point break. Are we putting in a bottom down here? Folks broke it on Tuesday, just the 128 level. Folks broke it yesterday for sure. And are we folks breaking 128 again today? Are we putting in some form of bottom here? If you were following a Telegram and you've been waiting for a nice clear trend line break, you could be risk-free already there, getting support on a move back up there at the 128 level. Now, if you're risk-free and it doesn't work, it doesn't really matter, does it? You could have gotten risk-free by now. And we may be putting a bottom in for a long-term move up. We may just come back up to retest 130.40, which is weekly resistance at the moment. So there has been a nice little setup there. It is counter trend to the weekly and the daily, but it is in line with the bigger picture monthly trends. Are we putting in the bottom? All right, I'm going to hop over to the euro yen. Now, if you look at your 4-hour charts, look at your day chart, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days have been holding down here. Big spike up yesterday. 4-hour charts, you can see support, support, support. Last night's topic was last week's low, last week's high, last month's low, last month's high. Those levels acting as strong support or resistance. There is last week's low. All right. Now, you kind of missed it because we've already tested last week's low. We've already had a nice little swing point break. We've already had a nice little trend line break. You could have already been risk-free by now. All right. Simple support at last week's low. And as well, we've got support levels to the left that have been holding on that level as well. Now, can it move up long term? I would suggest this is the obvious barrier. I said that was the barrier on Tuesday, and you can see that it was yesterday. Can we get back up to retest what is weekly resistance there at 140.75? Okay. All right, let's have a look at the dollar index. So dollar index, like I was just saying on the dollar yen, I've got the fib drawn across on the weekly chart there, last year's trading range. We're a little bit below the 62 here on the index, but we know where we are on the dollar yen. But are we going to be putting in a bottom in that area? We'll have to wait and see. Not seeing any day structure uptrend. I'm seeing a nice little rejection though yesterday on the candle. So the thing that's going to obviously show whether or not we can bottom out is, can this day chart start showing form an uptrend? All right, it's not doing that at the moment, so you need to be a bit careful about. We did have a reversal yesterday on the pairs versus US dollar, but the dollar index has not yet changed trend. So if you can get a nice tight entry for reversal, great, but just need to bear in mind we are still in a downtrend there on the index at the moment, but we are sitting at or around about the 62 level. S&P 500, go to your weekly chart. So this is a bit mixed, but we could be putting in a lower top here on the weekly chart, that 62 level, pretty much the 4,000 level. So Day trend is up at the moment, but I'm very aware of where we're failing here. Are we actually moving down now to move through these lows? So if this moves down, we're probably going to see the dollar index move up. And pairs to the US dollar move down. All right. I just want to click through, see what's going on at the moment. Some of these pairs are a long way away from where I'd like them to be. Now, let's talk about the euro dollar. All right, so for the whole week, we cannot exist up at last week's high. 3 negative days. Yesterday, we traded above last week's high, and you can see we rejected there. Is that rejection going to start to show a longer term reversal up there? Trend on the day is still up, but we are having a large difficulty up there. We actually touched 108.79 yesterday, which is this monthly low here. All right. I know a lot of you won't put these lines in. This is from like 2019 or 2019. It's a little bit hidden by some lows here, but we are holding at that level. So it is, getting on your chart, it is meaningful. It's a meaningful level. All right. I keep discussing the importance of last year's range. We're in between the 62.79 of last year's range at the moment. Now the daily, as I say, the trend is still up, but that's quite negative this week. All these negative candles at rejection. I would definitely be watching today. For our chart here, there's last week's high. It's a bit covered by the grid on the chart, but it's there. If you don't have my charts, it's at 108.67. 108.67. We failed there once, twice, 3 times this week already. So are we consolidating here to move down? Because we had this very large imbalance from the job figure day early in the month. There it is. So are we going to come down and fill that? At the moment, 107.87, where we've been getting support in today is actually a weekly top. It's this top over here. So maybe we've just pulled back to support today and we're going to go back up and test resistance. But on the 4-hour chart there, it's most definitely consolidatory. And it really does not like it up at the top. So are we putting in a final top up there, or are we simply going to have another challenge up there and over time grind through? All right. So I quite like that rejection. I said yesterday, watch last week's high. And we failed there twice yesterday. So last week's high is, as I said, 108.67. I've got a 79% fib at 108.64. Can we get up there? All that area, if I squash that in, it all lines up with the highs we've been falling all week. So that would be a great area to watch for another failure and a move down. That's assuming we can get up there. So we might not be able to get up there. All right, but it's obviously great to be able to sell at a high level. Now we are just fractionally above the central pivot point here. We may not get up to that level. We may well just start to falter at the central pivot point and turn around. If we are starting to form a downtrend, this was very negative through New York. If we are forming a nice strong downtrend, we may not well. We usually don't spend too much time above the central pivot point. So we start to falter and start to want to hold below the central pivot point. Where we're at right now could be the high of the day, but in a perfect world, I will be watching the high level. All right, I'm just going to go left and move through the charts now. Aussie yen. So to the daily. So we've had a big spike up yesterday. It's not the best pair at the moment, this pair, because I'm not seeing a setup. It was starting to form high bottom to a higher top, higher bottom to a further higher top, but now we broke that bottom. And we do some analysis from the weekly perspective here and the monthly perspective. The monthly, we are in a downtrend now. We've broken below that low. We are coming down to some significant support down here, these tops, if we move further down. So the monthly is down and the weekly is down. So this week, when you just look at the weekly chart, you can see a clear rejection up there, 2 weeks in a row. So clearly up there, that's where the sellers are. It's just at the moment having a nice setup to get in and make, a good entry trade. So it does look like we might be coming down a challenge support from that perspective. But at the moment, I'm not seeing an entry, and I don't want to trade short anywhere near this support down here. So I'm just sitting on my hands at the moment. 4 hour, it would be nice if it had a rally, draw a fib. 62 level lines up nicely with 90.51. 79 lines up nicely with 9100, which is daily resistance. I think that's monthly, weekly, daily resistance in all that order. So I don't know whether it can get a nice rally, but you'll just have to monitor. Of course, you can engage anytime you want, but I like to sell a rally rather than sell a lower move. So I don't know whether this is going to give a rally today. It doesn't look like it in the short term, but you never know. I'll be watching the first level, 62 level there, 90.46, and the resistance level at 90.51 if we can get up to that level, but I don't know whether we can. All right. As I was discussing yesterday, that failure we had yesterday there at last week's high, that just proves the importance of last week's high. Because if you did trade up there and you were still short, you'd be smiling right now. All right, so looking for a rally. I don't want to be selling anywhere near too close to this support down here, because what could happen is that we just continue down for the next day, down to support, and we hold, and then we turn around back up. All right, so if we are going to break support, I want to be getting in higher up. And watch support to hold. All right, Aussie dollar. Now I did get short yesterday up at the 70 level with a 100 pip stop, and it didn't take me out, so I'm okay now. Well, I was sweating a little bit. It kept going up through the New York news. So I'm looking at this as a 70 is very high for the Aussie. Looking at this range, and we're starting to move back below the 79%. Nice reversal on the weekly there. It's got some work to do, though. It needs to start to break below support levels that have been forming. It's trading into that weekly top there at the moment. Weekly top there is at 68.93. It has broken a very minor support low that got formed from Tuesday's low. Wednesday we went up. Thursday today we're going down and breaking it. So there's a little minor shift of trend there, but now we need to move clearly below this weekly top, and then 67 area would be where support is at the moment. We've got monthly support here at 66.71. We've also got weekly support down there at 66.81. Put that line back in. So have we topped out? What do we think? All right, so I had a nice sell-off there on the 4 hour. Look for a rally. I don't really want to rally too high because I'm in profit, but that could be a left shoulder. That could be a head, right shoulder forming over here. All right. So, watch between the 62 and the 79% area for a right shoulder to form potentially. Don't know whether we can get up there. Had a very, job figures weren't great today. Maybe we've run out of the buyers now. But monitor for a rally over the next few days at a logical level. 69 could be a logical level. In a perfect world, coming back up to test 70.09, but we are a good way away from that level at the moment. Cameron asked me what made me do 100 pips rather than 50-minute entry, because we had news coming out. So having a tight stop probably wouldn't work. So I just decided that I'd have a wide stop. Now, buying level, I got in just around about this area. I got in when we were kind of holding here, and then it started popping above. So then I was thinking I was going to be wrong, but I didn't want to have a tight stop because I knew the news was coming out, so I wanted to give it some room. But, you know, looking at it, you could have obviously gotten in higher up, maybe around the 70-20 level. You could have got in, and then with a tighter stop. But I didn't want to be up all night trying to look for an entry, anything like that. And when I went to bed, I was thinking maybe I'm wrong, but now I'm not, I'm right. So having a wider stop there is working out okay at the moment. All right, we covered the euro yen. Is this finding support down here? That nice little trend line break. It's starting to move back above that daily support / resistance level. That day support / resistance level is last month's low. So over the next day or two, you might see, well, we might move up, but tomorrow we could come back down to that level, which is last month's low, and it could be support. So that could still be a nice buying level tomorrow if we, depending on what we do, you know, what price does today. Euro dollar, it doesn't want to go up the range at the moment. Maybe it is just wanting to break back below the central pivot. Pound yen, well, which way is it going? There is this left shoulder, inverted head, right shoulder affair going on at the moment. This is the range of the monthly, which is in an uptrend. So this is all retracement on the monthly at the moment. Is it putting in a higher bottom here on the monthly? Take it to the monthly. Higher top to this area here would be a higher bottom. This top area here at the moment, which is 158.21, a monthly top there, we're just fractionally above it at the moment. So that could be acting as some kind of support. All right, so is this a left shoulder head, right shoulder forming? Daily, you can see we're very range bound here at the moment. Edwin, I know you were looking at that level, which we're pretty much sitting on through this area. I think you were looking at that level there, 158.58, but we're fraction below it at the moment. 4 hour structure here on the 4 hour is up, and there's the last low, the high. And, you know, if we can get a 4 hour candle closing back above 158.58, maybe we're just in fact, I draw a fib across that whole range. We're at the 62 there, getting support, and we're getting support at last month's low. Spoke about the significance of last month's low, last month's high. We've moved back above last month's low. We are holding on last month's low here. Is that going to be of significance today to move up? All right, you still looking at that, Edwin? I mean, there's a potential here. If you can get a nice entry and get your trade to break even, there is that big potential of the higher time frame head and shoulders that if that starts to run out, you know, that would obviously offer great risk to reward. All right. So you took a little sell yesterday, maybe from down up here somewhere, but that is a nice area at the moment where that is sitting in. Let's just drop it down the 15-minute chart. We've already had, you know, this 50-minute chart has already started to show an uptrend here. But a swing point break to the upside in line with the dollar yen moving up and the euro yen moving up. You know, with that last month's low there, you could all be risk-free there. All right. Pound dollar. Now, we didn't actually trade above this high. I've been saying all week I'm looking for a lower top to form. I was looking to short this, but it never gave me a triggered sell as this was moving up over the last 2 days. We could not trade above that high yesterday. We traded back to the 62 level of the yearly range. Is it this the last stab up there? All right. So yes, that day chart's in an uptrend. I think it's going to start to maybe confirm a double top across here. Would be a break of yesterday's low. It's always nice to get in by the 79% level so you can maximize your risk reward for the double top. Trade down to the double top price projection. That's all the way down at 123.50. So 120, I can get my eyes to work, 112.35. So, I mean, this could run nicely down there if we fail up there. Cameron, you're telling me you got into this, you were seeing a double top. So it is interesting. We're having weakness now versus the US dollar. So that's US dollar strength coming in, yet the 10-year bonds and 2-year bonds are selling off. So it is kind of weird what's going on at the moment. We're seeing now weakness pairs to the US dollar, yet the yields on the bonds are falling. So a break of yesterday's low will start to confirm that reversal. It would be nice to be able to get in by the 79% level to maximize your risk reward. This is on the 4-hour chart, though, still in an uptrend. So it would be nice to see a retest up here, and it holds like it did over here. See how it came up to retest, and then it starts to break down because this is still in an uptrend. You know, if I was looking to sell this right now, I would at least draw a fib across like so and monitor to see what was going on. But as I'm looking at this, that 123.45, I think, Edwin, that was your level. That's a daily level of resistance, and you can't see it, but the central pivot point is all the way across here. We can't get above the central pivot point today, so maybe we can't rally. So, you know, getting a tight entry at the central pivot point, 20 pip stop, just risking 20 pips for the potential of a very large move down is a good risk to reward scenario. I would like to sell a rally higher up, so you can monitor that. I'll just put that fib back in. You know, can we get a higher rally back up? 124.00 up to 124.09 would be great up in that area. Don't know whether we can, but you can monitor for the rally. If it keeps moving down, keep dragging your fib down. At some point, we'll get a rally, and then we can see where it wants to maybe form a lower top on the 4-hour. But it is holding at day resistance now. We're back below 123.45. We've hit it today once, twice, 3, 4 times. It does not want to go above that level. So the market is definitely telling you the sellers are sitting there. All right, so that might eventuate. Let me just get rid of that fib. Yeah, back to the day chart. That might eventuate as a very good top. And maybe that double top that we're forming at the moment could be the initiation of a long-term move down to challenge last year's low. All right, so Cameron, I know you struggle holding your positions, so I don't know whether you can hold it for a retest all the way down there, but it's going to take months to get down there. So maybe this is your time to hold a long-term trade. So in any events, that is a good, you know, if you got short yesterday up there, that was well done because it is a very good level. It's just a matter of now, can that day chart trend start to break down? Can the 4-hour chart show a turnaround? And then does it offer a nice setup to sell? All right, New Zealand yen. This is very range bound. We did go above last week's high here. but we are still very much range bound on the daily look and the weekly look. Can we break below support? I don't want to sell anywhere near support, so I'm not in this pair. I mean, clearly up here was the area to watch, and we can't go back in time. So at the moment, waiting for a setup on that. If it comes down, like this price action here, where we're coming down and holding, if we come down here and reject on a day chart perspective, then you should be looking for a setup to trade back up, because it's just telling you the same thing that it told you over here. All right, so at the moment, there's nothing to do but watch what happens at support down here. Maybe this next run down will be the time it breaks, but we'll have to watch. New Zealand dollar, very much like the pound dollar. We did manage just to trade above the high, but clear rejection on the daily. We've already broken the low of the daily, confirming that could be a double top. That fibs across the yearly range. See it, it's like a triple top up there now. False broke that top twice. Triple top and the 62% retracement of last year's trading range. Is this topping out here to come all the way down and challenge last year's low? All right, I know the day trend is still up, but that's looking negative. Rejection, breaking the rejection candle. If you're not already in, I'd be looking to sell a rally. I did earlier in the day put out the idea of selling a rally, but it just isn't rallying at the moment. So I will just keep dragging a fib down from the high until we start to get a rally, and then watch the fib levels. All right, it's not wanting to rally. I was hoping it would rally back up to 64.68 to do what it did over here. See how it rejected up here and then came back up to the level. However, it's clearly not wanting to do that at the moment. But we're definitely watching 64.68, the weekly resistance level there that got false broke. And we could even go all the way back up to the high to retest, but in all probability not. So I don't know whether we can get up to 64.68, but it's worth watching, or we just have to wait for price action to form some other structure that we can trade around. All right, so sometimes you have to wait a couple of days to see some nice structure and formation before you can trade. Dollar Canadian is putting in a higher bottom. I did discuss the idea we could be getting support down here on Tuesday. So this is forming an uptrend here at the moment. Look to buy a dip. We're a bit overextended, drag your fib up on the 4-hour structure and look to buy a dip at the 62.79, depending on what it can offer you. There's lots of 4-hour tops up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, once we get up to this high area up here, we might get some selling pressure back down. So I don't normally trade this pair, but if you wanted to trade to the upside, you want to look to buy a dip if you can. It's not dipping at the moment. All right. Covered the dollar yen already. Now, I don't know if this dollar yen is going to be able to hold at 128 level long term, but in the short term it is. And if you had initiated a trade on that, well, you could have at least risk-free, and you're looking to see whether it's going to work. Ultimately, this might just turn around today and trade down to 127. So I'd be cautious about taking another trade here on a movement down. I think your opportunities occurred. What you need to see, if it comes down again, you need to see another clear rejection before then looking for another setup. All right, I just wouldn't just be trading at 128, because the day chart trend and the weekly trend is still down. So you just keep, if you're long, you're just keeping your fingers crossed now that this can start to move up and doesn't want to come back to your entry. All right, let's have a look at gold. Slav, I see you on there. I don't know whether you initiated anything. I did discuss on Tuesday a retest up here at last week's high and that monthly resistance. Well, there was the retest. And whilst this kind of looks like it's in an uptrend, higher top, kind of a higher bottom area here on the 4 hour. If we are failing at that level, so let's just show everybody where the level is. This major high over here, there's also another monthly high there at 119.16, so a couple of monthly levels there. 1920, 1916, we're trading at 1911. Now the weekly is up, but we are holding at that level. And you know, that could be left shoulder, head, right shoulder. 3 negative days. Yesterday we rejected, could not shift through that level on all that bad US dollar news yesterday. So whilst that's higher top, this is a higher bottom, I think what's happening here is you draw your fib the other way. Because we've come up to the 62 there, had a stab, and we could be moving down from that level. Okay, so just look at the 15. Preferred option would be for a retest up there, whether or not it can give you that retest up there. We've already failed at the 62. Does it get any legs to get up to the 79, or have we already failed at the 62? So my preferred option would be at high level. All right, so you can watch the high level there. So what it's at pretty much 1920. Can we come up for another touch up there? We obviously failed there yesterday. We might not get another opportunity up there. Yesterday may have been the opportune time. All right, you can monitor that. All right, any questions? What do we think? Let's have a poll. Who thinks the US dollar, is it still in command in terms of selling off, or are we putting in a bottom? Do we think the dollar index is maybe bottoming out? Let's go to the monthly chart here. Do we think we are bottoming? That monthly chart candle doesn't tell us that we're bottoming at all. It's too slow a time frame, but just want to see where we are across that major range. We're kind of halfway down. That is last year's range. Be nice by the end of the week to see a nice positive blue candle on the weekly there, closing above the 62 level. All right, another negative week down by the end of the week isn't great. All right. Cameron, you're saying there's a strong level of support down that one of 128. This is that low there. That was the low that came in to initiate the push up and through this monthly resistance area here. So are we going to put a bottom in just ahead of there? Time will tell. I mean, pairs to the US dollar, some of those pairs to the US dollar heavily sold off yesterday. Dollar index isn't showing as much of a reversal because it's more than 50% weighted versus the euro to the US dollar. And the euro to the US dollar isn't the one that's selling off the most. All right. It's not selling off the most. It's not selling off as much as, say, the Aussie dollars followed through today. The New Zealand dollars followed through today to the downside. We are, of course, here we're positive at the moment on the euro dollar. It's retracing back up inside yesterday's candle. So, I mean, this could still hold its trend here. And that, of course, is going to put a downward pressure on the dollar index. But not all the pairs are following the same kind of trajectory at the moment. Pound dollar will be, as I've already showed you, just holding its central pivot. All right. So the only one that's really positive at the moment is that euro dollar. So for whatever reason at the moment, the euro dollar is the strongest to the US, to the US dollar from a pairing perspective. That's why the dollar index is moving down. So you get a bit of a false look of, okay, you look at the dollar index and you go, okay, well, the US dollar is declining. But it's not equally weighted. You know, the makeup isn't an equal weight of a basket of currencies. There's different weights from one currency to the next. So it's not a perfect look. All right. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, sooner or later, that dollar index is going to put in at least a short-term bottom for a rally. So keep monitoring up here today, 108.64 to 108.67 area. Last week's high. How many times we failed there this week? All right, everybody. Any final questions? The big question is obviously still at the moment, are we going to continually see the US dollar just keep selling off? Every fundamental news announcement that comes out at the moment for the US dollar is just negative. So clearly, raising of interest rates is starting to obviously come through on the data. However, the thing that is glaringly obvious to me is that interest rates are lower than inflation. And in my mind, to get on inflation down to a level that is, what is it, between 2 and 3% benchmark kind of idea, is, you know, until we've got interest rates above inflation rate, I don't see how inflation can get down to where they want it to have it. So, you know, in my mind, we should still be raising interest rates, which is theoretically US dollar positive in terms of the interest rate differential. Harash is saying conflicting statements in US Fed diff governors, complete opposite. Some say, not quite sure what you're saying, completely opposite. Some say 550 Baymate, others say 5475. Any views? I'm not quite sure what you mean by 550 and 5475. I'm not sure what your figures mean. Are you talking about an interest rate? So 5.5 interest rate or 4.75? All right. Well, I mean, in my mind, if they don't get interest rates above inflation, they can't get inflation under control. So there may be conflicting information coming from, you know, those on the Fed board, but we'll just have to wait and see. It is difficult because at times at the moment we're seeing, when we don't have any US dollar news for a few days, then pairs to the US dollar decline. They kind of start to show maybe we're topping out. And then when the next US dollar news act comes out, things just totally swing back the opposite way. So it isn't easy when we're dealing with the news. The market is reacting to the news for sure. Have they got inflation totally under control yet? I very much doubt it. So in my mind, they still have to keep raising interest rates at a significant level to, you know, get things under control. But, you know, do they let the economy go into recession to get inflation under control? So we'll have to wait and see what happens through the year. So that euro dollar still has an underlying bid. So, you know, a nice tight entry up here would be great, where it's been failing all week. All right, I might call it an evening there, just to let you know what's coming up next week. We have next Tuesday, more analysis. We'll see where the market is on Tuesday. Maybe we can we're looking at a rally point come Tuesday. If we have failed, we have topped out, maybe we'll start to see a rally point intraday on a 4-hour chart. So live market analysis on Tuesday. Going to talk about market structure on Wednesday's education webinar. Perfect example of market structure is that euro dollar at the moment. The live Forex market review again next Thursday is on that euro dollar. Now the 4-hour market structure there is it doesn't want to go above last week's high. And seemingly it doesn't want to go below weekly support. So a range is forming there. So at the bottom, potentially, if price is down at the bottom there and you're on your charts, that's an opportunity to buy up at support, up from support, and up at the top here, resistance to sell. Okay, so we can review that next Wednesday, see how that structure has been forming and continuing. All right, so if you want to join me next week, just go to the webinar page and register your interest. Other than that, have a great weekend. Hopefully you can, if we are reversing down, hopefully you can get in somewhere on a nice rally, and we'll see how things look next week. Are we seeing a reversal? All right, thanks everybody. Thanks, Cameron.